Well, good, beautiful morning, everyone. This is Brian Ritter. Jim's excited about the weather, folks.
Yes, very much so.
Jim is excited about the weather. That's our producer, Jim. Our co-pilot is always here on the Dakotas Network. I'm your host, Brian Ritter, and I'm joined in studio today by my guest, Sheri Grossman, the president of the Bismarck-Mandan Convention and Visitors Bureau. Welcome, Sheri.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Sheri, I've seen too much of you this morning. I'm not going to lie.
Well, that's not nice, Brian.
That's not possible.
Oh, we're not supposed to start off shows with that?
I don't think so. You didn't tell me that.
Well, look at your script harder, because it says in there, I'm going to insult you right at the outset in segment one.
Good to know.
Okay, well, for future reference, just know that's going to happen when we do this show. Folks, welcome to this morning's show. We are broadcasting to you from the beautiful strip here in East Mandan. Super Talk 1270, the Dakota Housing Network. Today, we're going to start off the show, as we always do, with a segment we call a Look Around Bismarck-Mandan by the Numbers. And this is going to be a review of a document that our organization, the Bismarck-Mandan Development Association, produces called The Economy at a Glance. And if you hear anything at the point during the next few minutes that you want to learn more about, that you want to see the whole document, you can find it at our website, www.bmda.org. And what it is, it's a collection of economic indicators. Whether it's our work at the BMDA, whether it's Sheri's work at the CVB, obviously a lot of our performance, a lot of the community's performance is gauged by numbers. And Sheri's going to have some numbers to share later on in the show. This morning I want to start off with an issue I think everyone is familiar with, and that's workforce. Sheri, I'm curious, in your line of business, when you talk to your members, especially the hotel folks, workforce still an issue? Are they still talking to you about labor? Are they still talking to you about trying to fill jobs? Or have you seen it improve?
You know, from what we're hearing, it has improved. I think it's still somewhat an issue, but it's certainly not where it was a couple of years ago, and I think it is getting a lot better. Is that kind of what you're seeing, Brian?
It is, Sheri, and I think the numbers back that up as well. And if we look at the latest numbers we have are basically for November. So if we go back November of 15, our unemployment rate is right around 2.1%. The total employment within Bismarck and Mandan was about 75,000. Fast forward a year, and I know it's been a tough year for some folks in Western North Dakota and some of our farmers, but Bismarck-Mandan, we're still holding right about those same levels. Employment, right about that same number, 75,300 versus 75,400 the year before, and it's about a 2.4% unemployment rate. And anecdotally, I hear the same things you do, Sheri, that it's not as tough. I would qualify that, however, by saying, as we go into the summer, you and I both know that unemployment rate is going to come right back down below 2.0%, and with the new retail coming, whether it's in the strip here with the North Bismarck or South Bismarck, I think it's going to be tight. I think you are going to see employers who are going to have to get a little bit more competitive again, just based upon how tight I think the labor market's going to be. And whether it's service or retail or the combination of both, I think that's where you're going to see probably the most strain. So, a lot of jobs. I mean, no doubt about that. Bismarck-Mandan still doing very well. In fact, Sheri and I had a meeting before this, and one of the things we talked about was jobs. And as of the end of last month, there's about a little more than 2,300 open jobs in Bismarck and Mandan. Do you think that number would surprise people, Sheri? I mean, you think listeners right now surprised by having that many open jobs?
You know, I think it really would. You know, people always, I don't think they understand how many jobs are available and the different opportunities there are for people for jobs here.
And I think you're right, Sheri. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, it's a great market. It truly is still an employee's market, maybe not to the extent it was 24 or 36 months ago, but it still is a great place to be if you're looking for that opportunity. I want to talk about real estate for a second. Neither Sheri and I are real directly involved in that real estate market, but people ask about it. People see for sale signs. They see things being built. They want to know what's happening. And if we go back through December of last year, December of 2016, we looked at about 1,370 single-family units sold, single-family homes sold, about 1,370 throughout Bismarck and Mandan. Sheri, do you think that's more or less than we saw in 15?
I didn't know there'd be trivia
Yes,
here.
there is trivia, Sheri. Did you read my script at all?
You didn't give me the script. I think that's a trick. You always say, I'll tell you what we're going to talk about, Sheri, and you don't.
No, our listeners can't see that. I just shoved it in front of you.
What was the question again?
Do you think we sold more homes in 2016, existing homes, than we did in 2015 or less?
More.
You're right. Folks,
is there a prize?
No, there's not a prize. We're not being paid to do the show, Sheri. There are no free prizes.
You didn't tell me that
there
either.
There are no prizes here. But Sheri is right. We actually sold more existing homes in 2016 than in 2015. And I think that would surprise people because, again, with what happened in the oil patch, with what happened with our farm commodities, I think people assumed that market was going to slow down. I think people assumed that would be different. And it certainly is different, but it's not slowing down. It actually accelerated a little bit.
Well, that should still be good for the overall economy here, then.
Very much so. And I think, now, Sheri, I'm going to keep asking you a question, keep peppering you. Do you think the average sale price for those existing homes went up or down last year?
I am going to guess it went down slightly.
Oh, she's good, folks. She's not even looking at the numbers either.
I can't see that sheet over there either.
She can't see these numbers or the script. And she's right. The average selling price for those homes we just talked about actually went down. Last year it was about $269. This year it was about $267. And that's an important figure because you to tie that real estate to those jobs numbers. Because if people are coming to Bismarck-Mandan from outside the market, of course, they need a place to live. And during the height of that 2012, 2013, 2014 boom, we obviously saw real estate prices just increase dramatically. And so now to see the market stabilize somewhat and to see that it's still a good price, it's still a good market if you need to sell, but there's still good demand, it's nice to see those numbers kind of somewhat stabilizing. Now, if we look at the other side of that coin, we've got existing homes for sale, but we're also building a lot of new homes. I mean, Sheri, you drive around, you look at your neighborhood in North Bismarck, there's still a lot of homes going up there. My neighborhood in South Bismarck, it does not seem to have slowed, and the numbers are pretty much right on pace. Single-family permits, this is throughout Bismarck, Mandan, Burley County, Morton County, through December of 2015, right about 641. December of 16, that same geographic area, 614. So, for all intents and purposes, pretty much the same. Valuations, very much the same. So still a very strong market, still a very good market for this region. Now, Sheri, a little bit, we'll talk about this a little bit later on in the show, but when you look at those numbers, when you hear those numbers, just what you're seeing in tourism, what you're seeing in terms of visitors to the community, do those numbers kind of agree with what you're seeing in your business? We're seeing here, not necessarily huge growth, but good growth in some of these areas, still a very strong market. Overall, that's what you're experiencing as well?
It really kind of is. I think the beginning of last year was a little bit slower, but things certainly picked up throughout the year. And I think that's how it's going to continue for the next couple of years with just slight increases. We'd like big increases, but as long as we get an increase, we're good with that too.
Now, the last indicator I want to close this segment with is going to be taxable sales and purchases. This is an important number. This is the number that shows all of the money being spent, all those goods, services and that have been sold or bought. And that's really how people gauge the size of our economy. And it's a number that when retailers come to Bismarck-Mandan, I think Sheri probably gets asked the same question, some of her users, they want to know how many dollars are being spent in your economy. And that's down, no doubt about that. There's simply less money in the state. I don't think that should come as a surprise from anyone. What I want people to understand, though, is right now, Bismarck-Mandan is about a $2 to $2.1 billion economy. Well, if you go back to 2000, 2002, that number had just creeped over $1 billion. So think about that in perspective. It took our community's entire history to grow to be about $1 billion economy. And then in about a 10-year time frame, we went from $1 to $2.1 billion. I think that type of growth should just show people just how strong this market really is. Do you think people, Sheri, understand kind of how that's changed over the last decade? Or at this point, are we just so used to it?
Well, I think you're doing a good job of explaining it.
Thank you.
So I think they'll know now, Brian.
Oh, see, she sees a sign behind me that says agree with me. But don't you think, Sheri, that people, when they think about the size of our market, they think about the size of our economy, you kind of put it in terms of what you see around you every day, right? You look at what you see on the way to work or when you go to daycare or school, things like that. But without the numbers and really putting those things together, it's tough to understand just how comprehensively we've grown.
I agree. It's been enormous, and I think without hearing some of those numbers, people really wouldn't realize that.
I think the last point I want to make here before we go to the break is, as it relates to those numbers specifically and Bismarck-Mandan as a whole, is that certainly we are impacted by what happens around us. There's no doubt, and Sheri's going to talk more about that in terms of visitors coming to the community. We are impacted by commodity prices. We are impacted by what happens around us in the region, but we have a very strong, a very diverse, and a very stable economy here in Bismarck-Mandan that doesn't help us ride out those ups and downs. And so I want people to realize that, to understand that. And again, if you want to see any of these numbers, be sure to visit our website, www.bmda.org, lower left-hand corner. Jim's giving me the finger, not the one you're thinking of, that we're here to go to break. So with that, he's going to play us out with, I believe, a little bit of Green Day today. Yeah. Here in Super Talk 1270.
Something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Right now, 41.
The home for ABC News at the top of the hour is Super Talk 1270.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine?
And we're back here on the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270. I'm your host, Brian Ritter, with the Bismarck-Mandan Development Association. I'm joined in studio this morning by my guest, Sheri Grossman, the president of the Bismarck-Mandan Convention and Visitors Bureau, from hereafter referred to as a CVB. I'm not saying Convention and Visitors Bureau every time, Sheri.
That's okay. CVB is good, Brian.
Okay, we'll keep it there. We'll keep it simple. I've worked with Sheri for a while now, and Sheri has been with the CVB for a pretty good amount of time. She's been the president now for a couple of years, and she's done a tremendous job, and she's been gracious enough to join me in the studio this morning. And for this segment, I just told her during the break, I said, all right, we're just going to talk all things CVB, everything about it, who you are, what you do, what time you get to work in the morning. I don't care. We're going to throw it all on the table.
And how many minutes do we have?
How many minutes do you want, Sheri? So, Sheri, I think people in Bismarck-Mandan, especially in the business community, they hear the CVB. They know what the CVB is. But I don't know the extent of all the things that you do, Sheri. And I don't even know that I all the time know to the extent of what you guys are involved in and all that you do. So maybe for our listeners, let's just start off with, who is the CVB and what it is that you do?
Sure. First of all, I think I'd just like to get our mission statement out there, and I think that kind of explains a little bit the difference between us and the chamber, and which is you're laughing, Brian.
Sheri,
people get confused.
Nobody says that.
Okay. Sure. Well, our mission statement is to promote quality visitor experiences resulting in community economic growth. We work with visitors of all types, whether it be meetings, conventions, sporting events, leisure traveler. We work with them all. And one thing I think people don't think of us as an economic development organization. People also don't realize that what's the number 3 in our I can't think. The third.
I mean, probably the industry.
Brian, help me.
The industry that I would say is probably generating, the third most income in this community. Probably tourism.
There you go.
Probably tourism visitors.
They bring a lot of money to our community. And just to give you a little bit, I'm going to give you some stats on that. You like numbers,
I love numbers,
Brian,
Sheri.
right?
You know that.
Okay. All right. In 2016, Bismarck-Mandan hosted over 450 multi-day meetings and events. Now, those 450 meetings brought in over 314,000 attendees. Brian, is that your phone?
Sheri, you're not supposed to say it. We could just blame it on Jim
okay.
and nobody would
All
know
right.
the difference.
So those 314,000 attendees spent $31.2 million in our communities while they were here in Bismarck-Mandan. And what I think is really interesting about that is 9.8 million of those expenditures came from international, national, and regional groups. That's a lot of out-of-state money coming into our community.
Sheri, now, so when you talk about sporting events or trade shows, things like that, is there one thing in particular that, of those that you just listed, is there one in particular that Bismarck-Mandan is bringing more of or doing a better job with or is more attractive to naturally? And I ask that question because, we're coming up on state tournament time in North Dakota, and I apologize, I don't know which one is in Bismarck-Mandan this year, but I'm guessing we've got at least one of the basketball tournaments.
We do.
Everyone knows when it's basketball tournament. Everyone knows that there are more people in the community. Is it sporting events or is it trade shows or something else?
I think it's a real combination, and I brought a list of some of the tournaments that are coming up that we can go over there. By the way, it's Class A boys and girls.
Thank you,
here.
Sheri.
But I think we work on a real nice variety. We have different people in our office that work on different things. We have one that works just on sports and events, and then we have a couple sales managers that their segments are divided up. So one might work with ag and medical, another can work with military reunions, government. So we do host really a nice variety of both state, regional, and national meetings, and I think that would kind of surprise people to hear some of them that we really do so much of that.
Sheri, another comment that you had made earlier in the day in our first meeting that we were together in was as it relates to trade shows. Obviously, the Bismarck Event Center has expanded, and we now have a very large exhibition hall. And in fact, we have the largest trade show floor space in the state. Do we not?
We do. We have the largest in the region. So
wow.
Yep. It's A lot of people thought the Alaris in Grand Forks was larger, but we do have more
So
floor meeting space than they do.
So for our listeners, I mean, if like you said, they're probably thinking of the Alaris, they're thinking of the Fargo Dome or something like that. So if you take the football field off and you push the bleachers back, you compare those spaces to what we have at the event center, end to end, width to width. All of a sudden, we've got the bigger space, and I do think that surprises people.
We do, and we have, the people think of the Fargo dome being large, but they don't have the meeting space. The Bismarck Event Center has about 20 rooms if you count all the meeting rooms.
So Sheri, we talked about sporting events, we talked about trade shows, things like that, and then of course you've got one-off things like concerts, things like that. Can you talk to our listeners about the difference in terms of the economic benefit of, say, a trade show that is going to bring people for 2, 3, maybe even 4 days versus a concert where they might come in and they might stay overnight or maybe longer than that? Can we talk about the difference?
And there is a huge difference. Concerts, living here, we're all excited about that and we like that. They do not have nearly the economic impact that a meeting or convention has. A lot of, for the concerts, they'll even drive in and out, or maybe they'll stay the one night. But most meetings and conventions, they will stay here a minimum of 2 nights, and they're in our community. They're spending money in the restaurants, the shopping. If they drive in, they're filling gas here. They might do some medical appointments while they're here as well if they're driving from state. So there really is a huge difference in that.
So Sheri, obviously, I mean that only scratches the surface of what it is that you do, but your organization as a whole, I mean, you are a membership organization. I mean, so you can talk about who your members are and kind of who supports what you do.
We are a membership organization, and recently we've been getting a little bit more out in the community and talking about the benefits of joining our CVB. Our membership rates are not high, and we recently have a lot of new members, a variety. We used to mostly have hotels and restaurants, and we're getting a lot of other members that realizing the benefits of if they can be a part of us and the money, how it trickles through the community, the visitors that we bring in.
I think it's an important point that Sheri just made, because you're right. If you think about the CVB, you think about hotels and motels and things like that. But think about, we'll just use South Bismarck for an example. If there's an event at the event center, then that means there are people who are going to probably maybe be eating at places along South 3rd Street. They might go to the mall. Or if you're up at the Capitol, say in North Bismarck, and you're there, those businesses around, they're going to be impacted as well. And so while you might not be thought of as a traditional CVB member, because, again, as you said, there is that impact, it pays to support you and you do what you're doing.
Exactly. And we do offer for our members, they have links on our website. They're the first people we refer to when visitors come in our visitor center. They have the opportunity to be in our coupon card, so they get in front of the visitors as they're coming to town.
So let's talk about the visitor center for just a second. We're just talking over the break about the CVB has a new logo, and it's very cool. I mean, if you go to the website, check it out. It's a very cool logo. And if you don't go to the website, if you're just driving right now, if you drive by the visitor center over on Burnt Boat Road,
1600 Burnt Boat Drive.
There it is. You can see it front and center. I think a lot of people know that the visitor center is there. You drive by it all the time. I just don't know how many people know what exactly it is, Sheri. So can we talk about what the visitor center is?
I'd be happy to. We have a very nice visitor center right inside the CVB. We have a lot of people that come in. First of all, they come in to look for things to do, and our job is to tell them all the things they can see and do while they're here and maybe get them to stay an extra day longer. But what people don't realize is we have a very nice gift shop in there as well. We have a very nice variety of North Dakota products. In addition to taking care of visitors, we help the locals a lot. We'll put together baskets for corporate gifts or for special clients. So it really is a nice place. We have some new logo wear clothing with our nice new logo. We developed that last summer, and it's Bismarck-Mandan, and right now our tagline is No Boundaries. We really believe there's no boundaries to the experiences that they will have here, the type of things the visitors can do here. I have a trivia question for you now, Brian.
Let's do it, Sheri.
All right. So we get a lot of visitors in our visitor center.
Yep.
How many different countries do you think we saw visitors from this past year?
25.
13. I thought 13 was a lot of different countries.
But I still think it's a lot of countries. I have no frame of reference, Sheri. You're putting me on the spot. It was funny when I did it to you. It's not funny when you do it to me now.
There you go.
No, but Sheri, the visitor center is strategically located by I mean, it's you didn't just pick that spot because it was nice. You picked the spot because visitors, whether they're coming from the east or the west along 94, that exit right there at 157, you're right there. You see us right there, front and center.
Yeah, it is a great location. Our new sign has helped a lot. It's much easier for them to identify us, but it's very good to be right off the interstate for our visitors to stop in and talk about what they can do here.
Sheri, before the break, those 13 countries, Scandinavian countries, is it? And it's not. I mean, Canada's only one country. We can't chalk them up. But I've got to imagine. I mean, it's a pretty wide swath of people. I mean, it's got to be Canada. It's got to be some of those Scandinavian countries, is it not?
It is, but they kind of come from all over. And this year was a year we had 2 countries that have never been here before. We had visitors from Israel and Kuwait.
Really?
Yep, so they're coming from all over, but a lot of the Scandinavian countries, because we work with North Dakota Tourism and market to some of those countries. So.
Well, folks, it's not even 11:30 yet, and I've already learned something new today. And I now know that 2 visitors from 2 new countries came to Bismarck-Mandan last year. We're going to hear more from Sheri and the CVB after our next break. You're listening to the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270.
Right now, 41.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're on the Dakota Housing Network here on Super Talk 1270 AM. My name is Brian Ritter. I'm your host today. My guest is Sheri Grossman, the president of the Bismarck-Mandan CVB. That's Convention and Visitors Bureau. If you weren't listening to the last segment, we're just going to call it the CVB. And before the last break, Sheri had just kind of wrapped up a lot of great information about who and what who the CVB is, what it is they do. And folks, we don't have enough time today to go through all the things they do. They do a fantastic job. Their staff is out across the country promoting this community. What I want to talk to the next segment about with Sheri is kind of what's going on within her industry, what's happening within Bismarck and Mandan that is going to bring new people. What's going to happen that's going to bring people to the community. What's going on with hotels, airports, stuff like that. So, Sheri, if I might, let's talk about the airport for a second.
Okay.
Because I don't know that people really give our airport as much credit probably as it's due for just how much business is going through there right now. I mean, our airport truly is an asset, is it not?
It is, and it's a very beautiful airport, too.
For a market our size, I mean, you go through markets our size across the country, they're older terminals, they're dated. Ours is fantastic. In fact, when we bring visitors to the community, that's one of the comments we often hear is that you guys have a great airport. It's spacious, it's roomy, it's modern. People love the ceiling. I mean, people love it.
Exactly. And all jet service, you go into some of these other places. I was at Cody last summer, and, you have to walk out to the airplane, walk up the steps, no matter what time of the year it is. And, we're very lucky here to have a beautiful airport.
Now, Sheri, one of the things that people have often talked about, I think, as a disadvantage of Bismarck-Mandan is just that air service. Because for years, and I grew up here, and you could fly to Minneapolis and you could fly to Denver. That was about it. That's not the case anymore, and you've got more than one option to go to those places. Can we talk a little bit about the carriers serving Bismarck-Mandan and where you can all go from here?
Yeah, exactly. And, that really has helped us a lot, too, with working with national conventions. We're used to Delta and United, and others have their other favorites that they prefer to use. And, I think the being able to get to Chicago now and to Texas, I think it's helped us a lot because they can at least use other airlines and have other connections. And, meeting and convention planners, they don't really use the Allegiance much because it doesn't really work for their connections unless those are the cities that they're coming from. But it really has been nice adding the other carriers.
So, Sheri, correct me. So I'm going to go through the list, and correct me. I'm going to miss some, so correct me where I'm wrong. But out of the Bismarck Airport right now, you can fly to Minneapolis-St. Paul on Delta, and I think there's, 7 or 8 daily flights?
Correct.
You can fly to Denver International via United. I think there's between 4 and 5 flights, kind of depending upon the season.
Yep.
You can also fly to Denver on Frontier, which is kind of somewhat seasonal, but it is a discount airline. And on a personal note, my wife and I flew to Denver on Frontier last fall for about $120 a person.
Hey, you can't beat a deal like that.
You cannot beat a deal like that. So you've got those routes, and then as you mentioned, American Airlines now is flying from Bismarck to Chicago through O'Hare, and then Dallas-Fort Worth. And then Allegiant is flying to...
Or Sanford, Orlando, Mesa, Arizona, and Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. You can't forget about Vegas.
Never.
So there, you've got options. If you want to go somewhere, you can do it out of Bismarck-Mandan. And I think it's telling that a lot more people are flying out of Bismarck-Mandan because just last year in 2016, the Bismarck Airport was one of only, I believe, 3 airports in the state.
Yeah,
actually
I believe
grew their
that's
passenger
correct.
boardings,
Yep.
and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that number last year, that was a record number, and that broke the record they'd set the year previous and the year before that. I mean, right now, if you go out there, I think one of the biggest issues probably is just not enough room. I mean, because parking right now is at a premium out there.
It is very much a premium. It doesn't help now with the snowbanks there, take up a few more spots, but I think it is a premium.
So, Sheri, a little bit different tack now. We're sitting here in Mandan on the east end of the strip, and just south of us is the new Sanford/YMCA Family Wellness Center. To the west of us is the under construction Star Inn Sports Complex. In South Bismarck, of course, we have the Capital Ice Complex under construction. We have the Community Bowl in North Bismarck. We talked about athletics and tournaments. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But those quality of life things that our community is adding, they bring people to the community too, do they not?
They certainly do. Visitors, to be honest, visitors want some of the same things that locals want. They want green space, safe community, good restaurants, shopping, things to do. And anything that's added to our community just helps to put in our wheelhouse of the things that we can sell to visitors, whether they be coming for a convention or just coming for a long weekend. And we only sell what we have, and everything that we can throw into our basket of offerings helps.
Now, Sheri, you made an interesting comment there when you were explaining about retail. I mean, you mentioned retail, and I'm going to go back to my own personal experience. When I was growing up in Bismarck-Mandan, we went to Fargo a lot because Fargo had, and this was before Sam's Club opened. I mean, but Fargo had Sam's. Fargo had stuff that we didn't. They had restaurants we didn't have. But over the last decade or so, Bismarck-Mandan has added an exponential amount of new restaurant, new retail space. Do those offerings add to Bismarck-Mandan as a destination? Does it make Bismarck-Mandan a more attractive destination for people, do you think?
It certainly does, especially for the people within North Dakota. They might live in a smaller community, and the box-type places, they really add a lot to that. Visitors probably coming for meetings and conventions from other states, they might look a little bit more for the specialty shops, some of just that are a little bit more unique to us, our unique restaurants. But I think what makes our community so nice is we just have such a nice balance of both. We have the names, we have the chains, but yet we have something that's very unique and can offer unique experiences.
And that's an excellent point, and I agree wholeheartedly because you're right. If you want to, if you're driving down Main Street in Mandan, you can't help but see Brea and the Harvest and Station West. You're driving through North Bismarck, you're going to see, your big box offerings, whether they're Pinehurst or Hay Creek, and those are fantastic additions to our community. You drive through downtown Bismarck, obviously you've got things like the District and the Peacock Alley, others, and then of course you get another retail base in South Bismarck along Kirkwood. And so truly there is something for everybody, and I think that's what sets us apart in the minds of a lot of people.
I agree.
So now, one more thing I want to talk about, what's happened recently in our community, hotels, okay? Obviously, if we go back to, let's say, 2005, we probably went through about two spurts. One right around that 04, 05, 06, and another probably 10, 11, 12, something like that. We added a lot of rooms.
We certainly did.
So how many rooms ballpark, how many rooms do we have in Bismarck-Mandan right now, Sheri?
Ballpark or exactly?
You know what? If you've got exactly, we'll take it, Sheri.
3,546.
She didn't even look at her sheet, folks. You can't see it. She didn't even look at her sheet. She just spit that number out.
For years we had about 2,200 rooms, and that just for years, and then we kind of just added, and now we've stayed at that 3,500. That that's kind of where we are now. And
I know there are people listening right now and they're saying, "Yeah, but boy, I've heard stories. You go out, and I've got friends in Wilson or Dickinson and Minot, and their hotels aren't full, but our market's performing remarkably well, Sheri.
If you look at the rest of the state, we are doing well. Obviously, the western part of the state has very, very low occupancy rates. Last year, our year started out slower and kind of it kept picking up, and then by summer, near the end of the year, we ended up, slightly up over the year before, and we were up over Fargo. So
now I'm glad she threw that in there because I always throw that into presentations. But I think, Sheri, you said something that surprises a lot of people. And whenever you and I meet and I tell my board about kind of what's happening in your industry, last year I kept telling them, Sheri's telling me it's going up and up and up. And it surprised them. And these are people who are in the business world. They're paying attention to what's happening in the market. And it just really surprised them that our occupancy rates kept going up and up and up with really no explanation other than just a strong local market. Do you think if we asked that average person in the street who might be going, boy, no, I've been in mine. No, our market is performing well. and it is doing well and will continue to do well.
And, I certainly think it will. And, other parts of the state, were tied closely to the oil industry. And, we're more diverse here. Yes, the oil has had a lot to do with some of our business, but, we have state government here. We have thriving medical facilities. Most of the state associations are housed in Bismarck-Mandan. So we really have a much more diverse economy than some of the other areas.
Now, Sheri, just in your answer there, you said something that I thought was telling about state government. And, of course, now you can't help but notice in Bismarck-Mandan right now, obviously the session, the legislators are in session as we speak. Will we see an 80-day economic bump? Will we see a boost in occupancies, things like that, as lobbyists come to town, as groups come to town? Do you see a change or not really?
Our years that we have session are typically a little bit higher, and it's not maybe just the lobbyists and some of the people that go up to the Capitol, but some state associations choose to have other events during that time, or maybe that's the year they'll choose to have their annual meeting here, or they'll do a legislative social. So there definitely is a slight boost on those years.
That's interesting because you're right. It is the strength of our economy lies in the diversity of our economy, and so that when maybe one particular segment is performing under where we expect it to be, another is going to pick it back up. And then it's not just one or two of them. It's 3, 4, 5. And go back to what you said right at the outside of the show, is that tourism, for lack of a better term, a very blanket term, visitors are bringing a tremendous amount of activity, business, dollars to our market. And I don't know that that's something that everyone thinks of right now, Sheri. Do you agree? Do you think right now people are still figuring that out?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult for people to wrap their head around that it's the third largest industry in the state. Ag, oil, that's obviously easy for all of us to grasp, but tourism really encompasses a wide range of areas. And, hopefully as our other economy kind of shifts a little bit, that tourism can continue to be a viable component to our system.
But it doesn't just happen. I know we've only got about another minute left here before the break, but Sheri, it doesn't just happen. And that's the strength of your organization and what you guys are doing on a daily basis all across the country. You're working hard to make sure it stays that way.
Exactly. And if I could quick throw out a couple more numbers
for you. Yeah, let's do it.
It doesn't just happen. Our staff last year conducted over 5,000 phone calls, meetings, and emails to meeting and event decision makers. And over 1,500 of those calls were prospecting calls to groups that have never met here before. So you're right, they don't just come here. They don't just stay here automatically either. We have a whole services department that works on servicing the groups that are already here, and over 900 calls to groups that are meeting here, helping them plan that event, helping with all the local details. So we work with getting them here, helping them here, and keeping them here.
See, and Sheri, and that's such an important point for our listeners to realize, is that these things just don't appear out of thin air. Sheri's staff is working very hard to make it happen, and we're very grateful for that. So we're going to head back into the next break here on the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270.
When September ends.
Right now, 45.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. supertalk1270.com.
We're back here on Super Talk 1270. I'm your host, Brian Ritter, with the Bismarck-Mandan Development Association. I'm joined in studio by Sheri Grossman. She is the president of the Bismarck-Mandan Convention and Visitors Bureau. And if you're just joining us, Jim, what was that song you just played us in with?
That is Green Day, their version of the Simpsons theme.
I don't know how Jim finds this stuff, folks. He's over here.
It was in the movie.
He's over here when we're talking.
You saw the Simpsons movie.
I
They
did
were
see
in
the
the
Simpsons
movie.
movie, Jim.
Yeah, they
but
were in the movie.
This is how the magic happens. Sheri and I are talking. Sheri's talking, just flying away, and Jim's over here finding stuff like that to play for you in the breaks.
Well, tomorrow is the birthday of Billy Joe Armstrong,
the lead
who's
singer of
the
Green Day.
Lead singer of Green Day, yes.
So now you know how the theme for today's show came to be.
Happy birthday, baby.
Now, Sheri is obviously with the CVB. She does a great job running the organization, and for the last 45 minutes now, believe it or not, we've been talking about the CVB, tourism in Bismarck-Mandan, and its impact. And one of the things that we had touched on, and I'm asking Sheri to talk a little bit more about now, is sporting events. Bismarck-Mandan is a sports town, and you're going to see it more now with the addition of the Bismarck Larks, the new Northwoods League baseball team, which will start playing in late May, and then Bismarck Bucks, the new indoor football team, which will start playing at the event center starting late next month. So, Sheri, whether it's that or it's tournaments, Talk about just what sports and recreation brings in terms of tourism to Bismarck-Mandan.
I think it has a very significant impact. The ones that you just mentioned, we're not as directly involved with them because they have their own organizations. And what those really do is I think they enhance the experience for the visitors that are already coming. It'll bring some new ones, some that have a love for baseball, but I think it will do a great job of, I want to go to Bismarck for a weekend, or I'm going there for a wedding or something, and they're going to stay longer because it's something for them to do while they're here. So it'll make their experience a little bit better.
And I think that's an excellent point, and something that Sheri had mentioned in our conversation over the break is that while it might not be that thing that brings someone here, it might not be that deal maker that says, all right, yeah, we're going to Bismarck-Mandan for the weekend. If you're here, it's going to enhance your experience. It's going to enhance your perception of Bismarck-Mandan as a community. And I think that's where the true value lies. Now, on the flip side of that coin, there are sporting events that will bring people here for the weekend, for a night or two. One of them being obviously the upcoming the Super A basketball tournament. Things like the McQuaid softball tournament over the course of the summer. Sheri, talk about those events.
Absolutely. And, any given weekend, there is so much going on here. I quickly looked before I left at just some things. This weekend we have West Region Hockey. We also have the International Dance Challenge at the Belmayhus. Of course, March has high school boys swim and dive. That's in March. We have indoor soccer tournament March 2nd through the 5th. The Frosty Club, I think there's over 600 people they expect to come. I think they capped it at 60 teams this year.
Wow.
That same time, high school curling will be here. Of course, we talked about Class A boys and girls. We have swimming meets. We have wrestling. Actually, state wrestling is here, March 24th, 25th. And it doesn't have to be just high school. We also have state amateur basketball that's here in March as well.
See, and I think and they're not all going to be wearing signs that say, I'm here for this event. But I think it's a safe bet that if you're going out in Bismarck-Mandan at some point over those weekends, on a Friday or Saturday night, something like that, you're going to run into some of those folks. And again, they're not going to be wearing placards that say, hey, I'm with this group.
Exactly.
But I think it's important for people to realize that they are part of our economy. They are part of our community, and they are bringing something to us. And so just be cognizant of that, of tourism's impact in our community. Now, when it comes to, obviously, talking about sporting events, but there are different events, Sheri. It's not all about just about sports, obviously. We've got wood turning clubs, and we've got, you've got flea markets, stuff like that. We've got other types of events here, too.
We have all kinds of events, exactly. And, conventions, too. For example, early this week, the North Dakota Safety Council will have their Safety and Health Conference. I think they've been here every year since 2011. That's 1,200 people. That'll be here in the first part of the week. The day they move out, North Dakota Homeschool Association moves in with another 1,200 people. And, these are some of the state groups, but, it kind of reminded me of, just to give you a little bit of variety, something we're really excited about is this May we're hosting the Rocky Mountain International Summit. And it's called International Roundup. And what this is we will have group tour planners from United Kingdom, France, the Nordic region, Australia, Germany, and Italy. They're going to be right here in Bismarck-Mandan. They're the people that in their catalogs, they put us in there. So they're going to come here. They're going to experience our community, and actually it's the first time this has been held in North Dakota. So it's great exposure for us. We're really excited about that.
So Sheri, whether it's that event or the events you had mentioned immediately prior, I want people to understand just the scale of what you're describing, because Bismarck-Mandan as a whole, and if you put Burley and Morton County together, we consider that to be our metro area, we're about 125,000 people. And so some of the events you just talked about, whether it was the Homeschool Association and the other ones, if you bring 1,200 people, all of a sudden, that's a 1% growth of our community. If they're all from outside the community grows by 1% just for those days because of those events.
Exactly.
That's the scale that we're dealing with that people, I think, don't understand. And we as an organization probably don't do as good a job as we should of helping you promote that awareness, because people have to understand that. It's a big, big deal.
It is.
Now, Sheri, talk to me about... We have 4 seasons in Bismarck-Mandan, in case anybody hasn't noticed. We have 4 very distinct seasons. We deal with them. We love them. It is what it is. But does that impact your business? Is there a busy season in Bismarck and Mandan? Is there a slow season for what you do in Bismarck-Mandan?
Well, as far as our work goes, there's no slow season because those 5,000 calls go on all year long. But, for national events, yeah, we have a window. It's going to be April through October for those. It's very difficult to get a national group unless they're so full of inside activities that they don't care. But, to get them to come here in January, yeah, that is going to be more difficult. So April, through October is the prime time if we're talking to people outside of the state.
And that goes along with the conversation you and I had previously about we as a community, because we have 4 seasons, we do try and jam everything we can into maybe even a smaller window. Just for lack of a better term, we'll just say it's Memorial Day to Labor Day. Whatever we can do, as long as the river's open and the grass is green, we do what we can. And it stands to reason that the people you're talking to are going for that same window. Now, that's not to say it's not possible to have events, though. From November to April. Yep. And you talk about those sporting events, things like that. They're indoor activities, yeah. But we do have those recreational outlets, we do those recreational amenities. And in your opinion, is it getting better, Sheri? Are we as a community offering more than we did even 12 or 24 or 36 months ago?
Definitely. As you mentioned earlier, there's new facilities going up all around us where we are here today, and it definitely is getting better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Sheri, when we talk about, is there any one particular event coming up in 2017 that you're really excited about? Is there one particular event that you as a CVB are looking at going, this is kind of a big deal?
There is one, and you know what, Brian? I can't tell you exactly
Sheri,
what that is, but I can say you're coming to our annual meeting on March 2nd.
Of course I am. I'm on the RSVP list.
Because we are going to be announcing a very exciting event, and it's actually going to be this summer, this August. So until March 2nd, I can't tell you, but I think it's going to be something that our community is going to be excited about as well.
I think they call it a teaser, right, Jim? Is that what you guys call it in the industry?
Any hints?
You call it a teaser.
Yeah.
Oh, Sheri's not giving away hints. She doesn't.
Bigger than a bread box.
It's bigger than a bread box. Yes.
Okay.
So it's, Sheri, I think if you've been listening to the show the last 50 minutes, what I think Sheri and I both want people to walk away from this with is an understanding and a grasp of just how important tourism is to Bismarck and Mandan, and that it's something that we as a community are working at on a regular basis. And Sheri, what's our biggest challenge? In your work, in trying to continue to grow that influence, what's our biggest challenge? What's our biggest hurdle?
Boy, that's kind of a tough one. Sometimes it can be a little bit, and I'm not going to say it's the biggest hurdle, but all people here in Bismarck-Mandan, lots of them serve on national and regional boards. Sometimes we ourselves don't think, I couldn't bring that group here. We couldn't host that here. They won't want to come. We're not big enough. How would I go about doing it? And I think sometimes that's the biggest challenge, convincing our locals that, we can, call the CVB. They can probably put the plan into action for you and help you with that.
So using that as as a great segue, if someone is, they are that advocate for us and they are looking to bring an event to the community, how do they go about getting a hold of the CVB? How do they go about finding the CVB? What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, we've got that nice big sign up.
That big new sign up on Burnt Boat Road, yeah.
But they can call 222-4308, and the person that answers the phone can help direct them to the right person because we do have different people for different segments. Also, as we're talking about sporting events, what's one thing that sporting events really need?
Grass?
Volunteers. So our sports and event manager is always looking for new volunteers to put on our list. You don't even have to know about sports. Sometimes they just need someone there to greet people, whether you want to volunteer a lot or just a little bit, but give our office a call and we'd be happy to get you on that list. And you're going to want to volunteer for this one that's going to be this next summer.
There's a hint. There was a hint, folks. Now, Sheri, what about, for the last minute, your website? If people are at their office right now, they're on the website, where do they go to find you?
NoBoundariesND.com.
NoBoundariesND.com, and that's how to find the Bismarck-Mandan CVB.
And we're actually redoing our website, so later this spring or early summer we'll have a new website, but all the information is on it right now.
Fantastic.
As well.
Well, Sheri, I want to thank you so much for spending all morning with me. In fact, at the BMD office and now at the studio. And don't act like it was such a chore. Sheri and the CVB do a fantastic job. I want to thank you for being here with me this morning in the studio, and thank you for all that you do for our community, Sheri, truly.
Thank you, Brian.
And Jim, thank you very much, as always, for being our co-pilot, and to the Dakota Housing Network on Super Talk 1270. We'll be back again next month.